Broadcasting Affairs.
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name and politics is our game. And we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest State Representative Jim Durkin. He's from Western Springs in the 82nd District. He is in his 11th year as a state rep. They gave him a few years off for good behavior when he ran for the U.S. Senate in 2002. A lot of our regular viewers and anybody who knows what's going on in Illinois would remember 2002. Tough Republican primary. There was Jim Durkin, there was Jim Oberweis, there was John Cox. Durkin took that, and in the general election he won basically all the editorial boards, right?
That's correct, yeah.
He had absolutely no money. The Republicans deserted him. All those people who promised that they would support you, they were not to be found, right, Jim?
That's correct.
So what can you say? U.S. Senator, then the incumbent, Dick Durbin. It was an interesting race because it was Durbin against Durkin. You know, just one letter change and could have been a lot of confusion.
Constant would have made a big
But
difference.
seriously, Jim Durkin knows a lot about the State House, and that's what we're here to talk about. But he also knows national issues. He knew Barack Obama. They overlapped for 6 years when Barack was there from 97 to 2004. Jim was there from 95 initially to 2002 and then came back. So he's one of our, we've had as our regular viewers would know, we've just had a variety of experts, Republican and Democrat, who know and knew Barack Obama as a state senator, pontificating as to whether he would make a good president. Jim Durkin will join that chorus in a few minutes. We'll be talking about the Illinois Combine, the Daley Ryan Combine, Daley Thompson Combine, Daley McKenna Combine, however you put it. Is it alive and well in Illinois, and what does that mean? Talking about the Republican Party, are the leaders completely spineless, as some people would say, or in need of more phosphates in their spine, as I think Dan Proft would say? Basically, are the Democrats going to revive the Illinois Republican Party? Is that what's going to do it? And we'll be talking, of course, also, we should say, our guest, Jim Durkin, last time and this time, that is, last time John McCain ran for president in 2000, he was state chairman for
That's
the
correct.
McCain campaign in Illinois. This time he is state chairman, but he is also national legislative co-chair for the McCain for President campaign. So what you can see is Jim Durkin wears a lot of hats, and we'll talk more about it in terms of his background as we get into the show. But the main thing, whether it's national issues, whether it's state issues, Durkin's our expert. Right, Jim?
Well, for the next 20 minutes, you do that.
Absolutely. Okay, so, the Illinois Republican Party, let's start with that. That's always fun. Does it have a message?
We have a message, but I think that...
Nobody knows it. Is
We have a
the
message, and
Republican Party in hiding? Or?
No, we're not in hiding. The fact is we've been able to defeat what I think have been massive tax increases that Democrats have been trying
Massive what?
Tax increases.
Tax increase. The GRT, the gross receipts
Gross
tax.
receipts tax. The
You joined together with the Democrats because that lost in the House 107-0. Last I looked, the Republicans didn't have 107 votes in
Democrats
the House.
joined us.
They joined you.
Democrats joined us.
So
We didn't join the Democrats. We're the ones
even
that
though
put
they're
the
the
resolution.
majority, because 67 Democrats in the House, 51 Republicans, but the Democrats joined
They
you.
joined us. We put the resolution in. We signed up, and we had Democrats, about 15 of them jumped on as co-sponsors on a resolution rejecting the GRT last year, and that was driven by the House Republicans. Right now, I believe that we have defeated other attempts within the last year for this graduated income tax, which
Progressive, they
was graduated progressive tax, which Democrats wanted to put on the ballot.
On the ballot to change the Constitution of Illinois, which prohibits a graduated tax. Right?
No, exactly.
And they couldn't get it on the ballot.
They couldn't get it on the ballot. A lot of Democrats voted against it, but we, again, we're the ones that defeated it. I think that right now, when you look at the spending that's going on in the state of Illinois, there's absolutely no care or concern about the way that our budget system's going and retiring any of our debt. They want us to spend
So
it.
succinctly, what's the Republican message in the state of Illinois? Republican Party message in the state of Illinois? What is it?
It's what it's always been, less taxes. And the thing is, we're not going to go down unnecessary roads of spending. We're going to be good stewards of people's money, and we're going to be ethical with our conduct. We're going to put good measures up before the people. And I think the most important thing is the issue of revenue and the reckless spending by Democrats, but also I think the Republicans are the ones that are going to have to take the moral high ground on ethical conduct in government, and I think we will.
Okay, is the Republican Party the anti-corruption party in Illinois?
I believe that we are. The people that I serve with.
Even though George Ryan, the Republican governor for 4 years, 98 to 2002, is now residing in a prison, a U.S. prison, for corruption while in government, right?
That's correct.
But you're past the stage of George Ryan being the sort of head or figurehead of the Republican Party?
George Ryan, the book has been closed on George Ryan, and we've got a big statement to make in Illinois next election cycle, but more importantly in 2010, how we're going to address the obvious lapses in moral judgment that has come from both parties. But I believe that coming off of George Ryan, and this is what I'm very disappointed with Rob Blagojevich. I've known Rob Blagojevich for a number of years.
Because he was a state rep when you were a state rep?
Absolutely. And I would think that...
you like Rod?
Personally, he's a very engaging and a pleasant guy, a lot of fun. But
Charming guy?
Yes, absolutely.
Real charmer. He charmed you, he charmed a lot of people, the voters.
Look, I've known him for a number of years. I think he's a pleasant guy, but the fact is he went into the mansion, he should have learned a lesson about what happened to George Ryan and just stick to his business and try to get some things done. But unfortunately, it's unfolding in the federal court right now. And
it's unfolding. What's unfolding?
Rod's future is unfolding.
Because there's a trial of Tony Resco in the federal courtroom?
Absolutely.
And who is Tony Resco?
Tony Resco is a political hanger-on, if you want to call it hanger-oner, with whatever.
Fundraiser
for Rob Blagojevich.
Became the dispenser of jobs. Did he become the dispenser of jobs for the Blagojevich administration?
That's the way I read it.
At least unofficially, if not officially.
Correct, yeah. I mean, that trial will be resolved with, it'll come to a conclusion very soon.
So is there testimony that Rod Blagojevich was in a room, Tony Resco is in a room, Aliana was in a room, and Resco puts a check down on the table, which is a contribution from Aliana to the campaign? To the Blagojevich campaign?
That's the way I read it, yes.
Testimony to that effect? And
correct.
And Rod asks about Resco, did we get a job for this guy, essentially? Is that what it was happening?
That's the way it was presented in the courtroom, yes.
Rod, of course, would deny that, right? Deny he said that? I guess we don't know if he'll deny if he was in the conference room.
This is one person's testimony against the other.
But if true, if it is borne out, would that be an indictable offense?
If the intent
you were assistant prosecutor under Jack O'Malley, assistant state's attorney.
Correct.
You worked as an assistant Illinois attorney general, right?
That's correct.
6 years you were essentially a prosecutor, I'm one former another. So you would, this is federal, that was state, but pretty similar. Indictable offense if what we've just talked about actually happened?
One, I guess it really have to think of, was Aliata there with the goal and the intention that the passing the check along was in exchange for a position in government. That is wrong.
That's what Aliata said, right?
That
buying a job, right?
Absolutely. But Aliata's already pled guilty. You have to look into the credibility and circumstances of that individual, unless he's on a tape or a wire. It comes down to one word for somebody who's a convicted felon.
Stu Levine said a few things that could be problematic for the governor, right? So you got to weigh the testimony of Stu Levine.
Correct.
Who's an admitted drug user, so that's a problem with that, right? But there's further testimony there.
Yeah, there's some credibility issues there, but I think that the trial as it progressed, you will see that some of the allegations that Stu Levine made were corroborated by Joe Carey or Stephen Lauren.
Right.
And
so you're getting to name a number of people who are not drug users. Joe Carey was a distinguished member of the Democratic National Party, chairman at one point, I think. So you're getting up there guys who might be pretty credible taking shots at the governor, which may mean Jim Durkin. Does Rod Blagojevich get indicted while governor of the state of Illinois in this term?
I can't say that.
If you had a guess, if you had to make a prediction.
While he's in term, I don't have a prediction. I don't.
You're not
I don't know how
this.
I have a brother that was a U.S. attorney, and those guys operate slowly. They work their way.
The wheels of justice grind slowly.
That's correct, but I think
they do grind.
They grind,
and under Patrick Fitzgerald, the U.S. attorney for the Northern District, they've been grinding pretty quickly, right?
Well, they
first they ground up the former Governor George Ryan. They ground up Scott Fawell, his guy who helped put George there, and then they went through the patronage chief for Mr. Zorich for the city of Chicago and some of his colleagues. And now they're looking at Resco, and it seems like the gun might be the wrong word, the turret is facing at Rod Blagojevich. It seems that way, but you're not willing to go that far.
I'm not really to go that far. I think that the credibility of Stuart Levine, who's and some of these other witnesses are going to be tested within the next few weeks based on what the jury does, because I believe they're going to their defense is going to wrap up their case this week.
It all comes together. It's all the same thing, because you're sitting here as a state rep, and there was an effort, in fact, led by the lieutenant governor of the state of Illinois, also a Democrat, also within the same party as Rod Blagojevich, and that would be Pat Quinn. Would you say he was leading the effort to get a recall provision, that is an ability to recall this governor and any other governor, get that on the ballot to see if people would like to see if they would change the Constitution, making the governor and other elected offices recallable, right?
Well, I don't think Pat Quinn was stymieing any efforts.
No, he was leading the effort.
Exactly.
That's my point.
He was absolutely
leading the effort, and he's a Democrat, and he's second to Rod Blagojevich, and he's leading the effort that would not just make the people able to recall Governor Blagojevich, but other governors, but certainly people would think what the motivating factor, at least in this currently, would be to get Rod, right?
Well, I think that Pat Quinn, there's no love lost between him and Rod Blagojevich. He was not his chosen individual to run for lieutenant governor for the first time.
But he got along reasonably well when they ran in 22.
Well, I think
Pat wasn't taking shots at Blagojevich and telling Republicans, don't vote for us, right?
No, he wanted to get
They
reelected.
ran as a ticket. Right?
He runs a ticket.
Maybe not a happy voluntary ticket, but they were there, right?
He wanted to get reelected. It was a job, and the fact is,
In
right
26, but also in 22, they wanted to get elected.
Absolutely, but the
But now
fact
he's
is,
singing a different tune.
well, that's the way it's been, as I've seen it every year, other than the 2 years that they ran together for election and re-election. But Pat Quinn, if the recall effort was successful, I'm not sure if it would get on the ballot by 2010. I'm not quite sure. I mean,
Like it might have been there by 29. They could have done it.
But
anyway, it's not going to be on there now because why? Because Senate President Emil Jones has an alliance with Rod Blagojevich.
Correct.
And he manipulated. Would that be unfair to say he manipulated the state Senate to make sure that thing didn't get on the ballot?
certainly,
That thing being a recall provision, people could vote and say, do we want to have recall in the state of Illinois?
Well, he amended it in a way which was pretty much, it was destined for failure. But
Put
he
in a
also,
poison pill that would include
yes, he
the
did.
judges, right?
Judges and also local officials.
The judges didn't like that, and local officials didn't like it, and so it made it harder.
He did, absolutely. But the fact is, he also, Emil Jones made sure that about 4 or 5 members didn't show up that day. And last week, a number of them just, conspicuously took a duck.
Yeah,
and,
so they didn't have to vote. They didn't have to vote against it, but they didn't give them They didn't get them the yes votes they needed to get it on
It
there.
was 2 votes short, and any of those individuals, if they would have showed up, they would have been in a very difficult position to vote against it. That's why I believe that they just happened not to punch in last Thursday.
Okay, so that ties in, but there's still a possibility of impeachment, right? People watching this show, many of them would know if they were following politics. In the year 1998, there was an impeachment by the U.S. House of Bill Clinton, and
Correct.
then there was an impeachment vote that lost in the U.S. Senate. Are we looking at the people in Illinois going to be looking at the same thing? Will Governor Rod Blagojevich be impeached by the State House?
He could be impeached by the State House, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Would you support that?
I'm going to see the evidence. I may be, I'm one of the few lawyers in the caucus. I understand a little bit about the legal system. I want to see what is presented and see what exactly, and explore the Constitution about what are impeachable offenses. And I can't give you an answer on that right now.
I think it's basically everything, anything. I mean, I don't think it's even as specific as high crimes and misdemeanors, which is the federal standard, right?
Well, I'd like to see exactly how it's presented, but I would certainly take it very serious, as everybody else should.
You might support impeachment in the House of Rod Blagojevich. You might, if the evidence warranted.
If the evidence was there and they actually gave us some standards which we should apply to any type of facts, and they put on a case, certainly it's not.
And then where does it go? It goes to the Senate, and the
House would have to vote on the impeachment, and the Senate would have to try the case with the Supreme Chief Justice. Similar in the federal system, the Chief Justice of the Illinois Supreme Court would preside over the Senate trial. Bob Thomas.
Bob Thomas is the state Supreme Court Chief Justice, right?
That's correct.
The ex-football player.
The kicker for the Chicago Bears.
Kicker for the Chicago Bears. So he's going to be calling
Wide
him as
to the
he
left,
sees
Bob Thomas.
He's not going to be wide to the left in how he calls the impeachment issues, but he was wide to the left often on his kicks.
His decisions have never been wide to the left either. So, but that would be the scenario.
But Emil Jones, the Senate president, he has the right to call it or not. If he doesn't call that impeachment, there may never be a trial, right?
Well, I could see the scenario where possibly the House could go through an impeachment process, and basically it stalls in the Senate, like a lot of other things that have gone on. There's the combination or the relationship between Mike Madigan and Emil Jones is very dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional? Would you say they hate each other?
I wouldn't say they hate each other, but I think that I think the hate goes on between the governor and Mike Madigan. That is clearly that's a very toxic relationship. It's a very strong word, but I believe I would say it's a hateful relationship, and it's unfortunate
Between Speaker
because
Mike,
Speaker Madigan and Governor Blagojevich.
hateful relationship,
I believe it is, yeah.
making the government dysfunctional in the state of Illinois.
I think that personalities have gotten in the way of things which I've witnessed over the past few years of the state.
Why is that? You know both. You know Speaker Mike Madigan.
I sure do.
You know Rod Blagojevich. Why is there a hateful relationship between these two?
I couldn't tell you. I just don't know. I think it's more than, Mike Madigan supported Paul Vallis a few years back in the first election. Paul Vallis was unsuccessful. I can't tell you, but I know that there is, since Rod won that primary a few years back, there has never been this outpouring of support from Mike Madigan.
And Emil Jones is aligned with the governor, so some of that hateful relationship between Speaker Mike and Rod spills over to Speaker Mike and Emil. Is that right?
I think it just makes the...
and Emil, of course, is the Senate president.
Emil Jones is going to back up the governor. He has been, and it just makes for an interesting conversation. I have not been privy to that, but I believe that any type of long-term discussions about budget, capital needs are...
Yeah, and as of May 5th, or May 4th, as we're taping this, the Republican leaders, Frank Watson, the Senate Republican leader, Tom Cross, the House Republican leader, they're essentially bit players because, they're really not needed to approve the budget until you folks go past, or if you do go past May 31st, right?
That's correct.
At that point, if he could get a party line vote in the Senate, they still wouldn't need you because he has enough votes to get the 60% he would need after May 31st. That is, he being Emil Jones after the end of May. But in the House, Speaker Mike doesn't currently have the 60%, so he does need Cross and a few Republican votes, right?
That's correct.
And so your prediction is things do go, the budget doesn't get passed until after the end of May, or at least doesn't get passed by the end of May. The capital budget doesn't get passed. So both those things require Republican votes, right?
I believe the capital budget is, exactly. There may be just maybe a 6-month operating budget. That's been discussed, but as of
so this is a great
last week,
opportunity. This is a great opportunity for the Republicans to say, look, you got Democratic majorities in the House and Senate, big majority, big time in the Senate, still a majority in the House. You got the governor's mansion, a Democrat there, and you guys aren't screwing up. And so you Republicans could say, let's start the tidal wave in 2008. Let's elect state reps, state senators who are Republican, bring back the House to Republican leadership. Bring back, well, yeah, I guess you lost it. Speaker Mike has been there for, as they say, other than a coffee break in 95 and 96, for about 3 decades.
Correct.
Republican majority. The Senate, you folks lost that in 22. So that should be your argument, right? The Republicans gang ahead, just go after the Dems and say, look, the Dems are screwing up, vote for us, right?
Well, I would say...
Simple message, right?
Well, no,
I'm not taking sides, I'm fair and balanced.
Well,
but anybody in political science would say this should be a piece of cake, and yet the Republican sits there and they don't seem to know what to do.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, Jeff. The thing is, if you give me a moment to
I don't mean
respond,
you.
what I've been doing over the past few months, and I've been talking about how dysfunctional one-party rule has been in the state, down from the governor's mansion to Cook County and also City Hall. And if this is what people want over the next 10 years, fine. But the fact is, I think that people are upset with government. There's clearly what's unfolding in Springfield is a disaster. The relationships are stopping what I believe should be reasonable progress of government. And I'm making that same argument for my friend, the U.S. Senator from Arizona.
John McCain.
Yes,
same thing. You should. Well, but it can't be same because the Republicans nationally had the House for a long time, 12 years.
And they deserve to lose it.
Senate.
They deserve to lose it because they were
And
excessive.
they had the presidency.
They were
And
excessive.
John McCain was a part of that in the Senate. And now your friend, John McCain, the senator
correct.
from Arizona, is running against either Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. We don't know. He's the presumptive Republican nominee. And you're saying John McCain can run with the same kinds of things we're talking about in the state
John
of Illinois?
McCain actually make an argument that, I would say look at Illinois, see what one-party rule has done, and I'd like to see what Barack Obama's done about trying to straighten out the ethical lapses and messes in Illinois, but that's an aside. But I believe the argument can be made that, if we're going to have a Democrat in the White House and both chambers in Washington will be controlled by Democrats, it's going to be a problem for this country. And John McCain, there's got to be some checks and balances in the system. There is nothing
So you're
in
giving
Illinois.
it, you're going to say in 2008, the Republicans still stay in the minority in the U.S. House and U.S. Senate, make McCain president to be a counterbalance. You're conceding that. You're saying the Republicans don't take back the
We're not
House
going to
and
get the House or Senate back, but I believe John McCain is the only person under the circumstances right now who's going to be able to make a challenge, and he's the only person. I'm glad for a number of reasons, but he's the only person who can challenge a Democrat in November under very difficult circumstances that are existing in the country at the moment.
Can he rally the Republican base?
I think so. He's right now, if you look at, I look at polls too much, but I believe my conversations with a number of people, particularly in the social conservatives, and even the blue-collar Democrats over the past few months, they like John McCain, and people are going to rally
They don't
behind
like his
him.
views on immigration, do they?
You know,
McCain, Kennedy. They don't like his views on campaign finance, McCain-Feingold. Okay.
Well,
they don't like his views that he voted against the Bush tax cuts in 2001 and 2003. So some of those people say, let's vote for Bob Barr, who looks like to be the libertarian candidate for president.
Well, he's a fringe candidate, and let Bob Barr do what he's going to do. But
He's
John
a fringe
McCain would have
fringe
not have
candidate.
survived the primary if Republican base was that upset with him over some of the positions.
A lot of
taken. But the fact
independents and
is,
Democrats could vote and cross over in a lot of those states, couldn't they?
well, that's what John McCain's appeal is, and that is what the
But
Republicans
maybe
are.
he didn't have the base with him. He had the Democrats and independents. So.
John McCain is going to go back. He's going to get the blue-collar Democrats. Independents are going to support him over Barack Obama if he is a nominee, because Barack is right now he's going through a very difficult vetting process, and nobody really knows who Barack is.
He represents change. He represents change. You gotta like change, right?
Well, you know, it sounds great, but the fact is, I'd like to know what exactly he means by change. No one does.
Well, you should know. You knew him for 7 years. Is he about change?
Not in the years that I knew him in Springfield. He was a
Obama wasn't about change.
Barack Obama was a intelligent, articulate guy, but he was a sure vote for the Cook County machine in the City Hall for those 6 years.
What did he vote that was for the Cook County machine in City Hall?
I looked at I've been looking at his records, but there was nothing that was outstanding, anything that
Kirk
leaked
Dillard
out.
sat in this chair just last week, and you know Kirk. He's a colleague of yours. He's a
Sure.
Republican state senator.
Sure.
He knew him. He knew Barack for all 8 years that was there. He said Barack worked with him. They worked on capital punishment reform. They worked on ethics reform. He said Barack. He did an ad for, you know, your Republican colleague did an ad for Barack Obama in the Iowa caucuses because Kirk said he's not going to say anything different now than he was saying in the 7 years they knew each other.
The Barack Obama that I knew back in Springfield, as I said, he was, articulate, bright, but the fact is, it was nothing that jumped out. I left in 2002.
So you differ with Dillard on
I
this?
differ with Dillard. I could tell you that capital punishment reform was basically, the groundwork was done between 1998 and 2002. It was a layup at that point. A lot of the things which they worked
But
on.
who was doing it? Dillard said he was meeting on Monday mornings, those cold Monday mornings, coming down to meet with Barack and others, and Rauschenberger, who criticized him, Dillard said he was freezing his butt off, getting nothing done.
You know, and I was there in the middle of it, and I didn't.
You were there doing it, too?
I was there. I was.
You were working
chairman
on
of
capital punishment?
Yeah, I was. I was chairman of the prosecutorial
And it wasn't true that
misconduct
Dillard
committee.
and Obama were working hard on it?
In the years that I was down there, no. It was not until 2003 when the Senate went to the Democrats, and most of the groundwork had been done by the Fitzgerald Commission and a few other commissions during the late 90s.
All right, so McCain does this somehow. He captures the base. Let's say he faces Obama one-on-one. You got Obama will be 47 then. What will McCain be, 72? Maybe almost a quarter of a century
71
difference in
maybe,
age.
yeah.
Yeah, can he really give that youthful, energetic experience? I mean, he's got experience, but youthful, energetic leadership change. Instead, you know, Obama's going to be saying, this is just the third term of George W. Bush, and he couldn't be more unpopular. Nobody can be more unpopular than Bush.
Well, again, going back to I don't know what Barack means by change. He hasn't articulated anything other than the fact, use the word change. John McCain is a stable force. He is the only person in this race who's actually worked with the other side of the party. You know, Barack really hasn't. John McCain is an independent.
What about the war? Has the war become a fatal issue for McCain? He's been a critic of the president in terms of management of the war, but he's been a supporter of the surge. He's been a supporter of not getting the troops out of there. He's been a supporter of seeing that thing end right, as Peter Roskin might say.
Well,
is that something he can persuade the country to support him on in 2008?
Right now he is, because he's 7-8 points ahead against Barack Obama in the last Gallup poll.
He's not ahead of Clinton. Hillary's ahead of Hillary at this point is beating McCain, isn't she?
It's within the margin of error, 1 or 2 votes. But the fact is, John McCain. People are going to look at John McCain, and you know the issues that are obviously facing the country are are very difficult, and people have to deal with them. But people look at the individual. They're going to vote on the person based on what they think of that individual. Do I like this person? Do I trust him? John McCain is going to get that vote.
Likable and trustworthy. Barack
Absolutely.
Obama is certainly likable and trustworthy, right?
People know who John McCain is. John McCain is he's
Still
got a great story. People don't know Barack Obama. They just don't know him.
Republicans are going to get them to know him. They're going to define him for him.
That's their job. That's what the RNC is going to do and the campaign is going to do.
Let's go back to closer to home to Illinois.
Sure.
You got a state convention coming up here for the Illinois GOP.
Correct.
In Decatur. Was it June 6th, June 7th?
That's correct.
People, when they want to find out about it, you can tell them. They can get in touch with a variety of other organizations.
The state party, yeah, absolutely.
Champion News, that's the Jack Rosender organization. You want them to get in touch there?
Certainly, why not?
It could be a big battle here, and that's Family Taxpayer Network. Again, Jack Roser, Doug Ibendahl. You know, they take a different view. Andy McKennas is the state GOP chairman.
That's
correct. Is it time for Andy to go?
Well, I think Andy's got he's going to be tested this year, and I would like to see exactly how he's going to, one, he's got to raise the money, but he's got to rally troops, and Andy, I believe, needs to be a little more forceful and talk a little bit about what the Republican Party has to offer, and also criticize Democrats on things that they should be, challenged on. I mean, we do it in Springfield. I'd like to wish the papers would pick up more of our criticisms.
John Cox, you know John Cox. You ran
I ran against John a few years ago, yeah.
Republican in good standing, would you say?
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
No,
okay. He said on this show, he raised some issues about Andy McKenna. He says father is chairman of McDonald's. Do you know if that's the case? Executive chairman?
I don't know.
Father, he says, Andy McKenna Sr. owns a big chunk of the Chicago Bears. Cox said the Bears depend on Mayor Daley for a lease of Soldier Field. He said, you know what, you go out to O'Hare, you never see a Burger King, you never see a Wendy's, because McDonald's has the franchise. Is there a too cozy relationship between Andy McKenna Sr. and implicitly then Andy McKenna Jr. and the city of Chicago government, Mayor Daley? Is that too cozy? Because this is they would say, Cox would almost say a Daley McKenna, Daley Thompson combine, you know? The economic interests of these folks continue as opposed to the political fortunes of the state GOP. And so if McKenna Sr. has the problem, does McKenna Jr. have the problem? Is it time to get somebody who maybe is willing to criticize the city of Chicago corruption as well as county and state corruption in the Democratic Party?
Well, I'm not ready to buy into John Cox's conspiracy theory. I think you could do a little more, can help the party by...
Dillard, your colleague, said these were interesting questions. You differ with, you don't think these are interesting questions?
They're good questions, but the fact is I can't say that any one of these are true. Andy is...
we should have Andy McKenna Jr. out here. He should be chomping at the bit to come and defend himself, shouldn't he?
Should call him up and invite him next show.
We've asked him, yeah. They don't bother calling back, so...
Andy's got a big job ahead of him.
Years,
Andy's ran for United States Senate. I think he understands politics. He's been doing a good job raising money. But the fact is, our party has an opportunity. I think right now, currently, with what's going on with Democrats in this state, take advantage of the lapses that are going on in Springfield, of the disaster at the county level with Todd Stroger.
Right. So you are saying that about Andy McKenna Jr., state GOP chairman. You have said he should be more forceful and critical of the Democrats, city, county, state, federal.
I'll just say that generically. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you agree with that. Okay. We're to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest, State Rep Jim Durkin. Thanks so much for coming out here, talking about a range of issues from John McCain to Barack Obama to Mayor Daley, covering the gamut. Also on that is this is coming up. The state is in line to buy Wrigley Field. And you're a Southsider, old Southsider, you're a supporter of the Sox, I understand that. But also Cox said this is going to benefit the McKenna family. Because he says, McKenna Sr. or his buddies are going to be a part of the group that's trying to buy the Cubs.
Well, there's a
reason. And then
why
Thompson's saying he's going to sell this, sell Wrigley Field, or he's going to buy that for the state.